Black Country Communion came about through the wonderful and talented Mr. Kevin Shirley, who called me up while I was doing my weekly grocery shopping um, in Florida. I was at home, and he said, "What are you doing January 2nd?" I said, "January 1st, I'm playing a gig with the Cathy All Stars." And he goes, "Okay, well, on the 2nd, would you like to go in the studio with Glenn Hughes, Joe Bonamassa, and Derek Shrinian?" And I'd worked with Joe before. I'd worked with Kevin. Never worked with Glenn, but knew him obviously as a kid, and it was worked. I kind of went in there at first as a studio musician, and it was a bit like, well, okay, I'll ride it as long as I know what's going on, really. Um, and it just kind of took off in the end. It was nice to be recognised in your own country. I must say, it was nice to suddenly. I remember the amount of people that asked me, and the same thing I asked when I got heard was they said, "Oh, I debuted at number 11 in the album charts." What, the rock chart? No, the album chart. What, the real chart? Yeah, the real chart. Not the rock chart. No, not the rock chart. Wow. Wow, I never would have thought that. Thank you. Thanks for the faith. Yeah. But it was a really nice feeling to suddenly have some recognition. It desperately made me want to move back. Good question. Yes, big time. I did play I turned up a day late for the first one, so I was a bit nonchalant on the first one, really. This one, I uh, I went back to my old setup that I had for many many years, which was three rack toms, three floor toms, a little bit more of a progressive prog kind of drummer than I had been in the past. So yeah, and it definitely made me play differently. There's a definite. I got to be on one song like Crossfire. I got to be Chad Smith and Phil Collins, kind of, which I was really into at a certain point in my life, like with especially Bloodsugar, Sex Magic, great album, very influential to me at the time. Mother's Milk was a huge influence for me at one time. And Abacab by Genesis was a huge influence to me. So on this one song, I actually consciously go, "Oh, I'm doing my Phil Collins here. Oh, and then I'm going to do my Chad Smith on the next bit." And they were next door. Chili Peppers were next door. So at one point, I remember Flea coming in while we were doing the track, and oh, this is pretty cool. We've been in there 9 months and we haven't. 9 minutes we've been in there. No capes. We're trying to keep the capes to a bare minimum. We were going to make Joe wear a leotard, but Glenn's fine with doing that. What can they expect to see from us in a sensible way? You're asking the drummer the strangest question, especially with my way of thinking. Um, I hope they're going to see. Uh, by the time we get here as well, it's going to be great because we're going to be quite a few shows in, and I think you're going to see a band that's really at the top of its A game. We'd have had a chance to iron out any different ones we didn't want to do live, arrangement wise. We're all in favour of definitely a show, and Glenn's definitely more than capable of pulling that off as a frontman. Musicians, I've no qualm with how we're going to, do that. I just want to make sure we do it in the right context, that it's not too over somebody's head, or it's not too self-indulgent, it's not too drawn out. Um, if anything, I'd rather stick to the majority of the material we have. But I don't think there's anything wrong with us even stepping on some of our paths or the things we've had a pleasure of working on. So who knows? You never tell. It'd be a shame not to do something just because we didn't, originally do it. Part of playing music for me in this band is, and for most drummers, I think we find drummers are definitely we play other people's music. So whether we've written it or not, I enjoy playing, and if we do it well, there's always a chance of us doing some other material. But I know Glenn wants to try and keep it as much as he can to being true to the new band, and I admire him for that too. So, but definitely there'll be a couple of surprises, I'm sure. Um, but it's 100% heart and soul felt live, no backing tracks. real musicians having fun and playing. I actually, I got my dad to take me to see the Police when I was 13, and he actually, and I was a big 13-year-old lad, and he had me on his shoulders for a good hour of the gig, so I could see because it was packed at Birmingham Odeon. And we got to meet Sting afterwards, and Sting was a bit of a singer back then. You know, cocky and upstarted, kind of just. They were just breaking in England. They just had the message in the bottle, and they were on now Walking on the Moon, and just Regatta de Blanc had just come out. And I remember Dad trod on Sting's foot, and he had these blue suede shoes on. And I remember him saying, "Hey man, don't step on my blue suede shoes." And I remember my dad saying, "I'll step on your head in a minute." And you saw the snigger from Andy Summers and Stuart go, "Oh, can you get away with that?" But it's all fair. Van Halen and AC/DC, and it was because Van Halen hadn't played in England for a long time. And I just remember how cool, because he did that line where he goes, "You say that one more time, I'll come down there and fuck your girlfriend." And you can imagine all the women going, "Throw it again, throw it." It was, Davey Roth was just so cool. I remember him working, he limbered up. They came out of his trailer, opened his like stereo system flight case, and limbered up to like Motown, and like Tears of a Clown or something like that. And he was like doing these stretches and completely no shirt on, and just these like tracksuit bottoms, and he was in that shape then in 1984 from that Van Halen period. And he was doing his kicks and things, and then walking up to the side of the building just with his leg flat against his face, And I'm going, how bizarre is that? This is in the dressing room area, like a roped off area. He came out and put the music on. It was like, boom, brah, boom, boom. I'm gonna leave. And he came out like with his coat on, and I was like, like, my God, he really loves himself, but it worked. Put it this way, we don't wait around as much as we do in the rock and roll business as we do in the movie business. Hence, all the musicians were the twitchy ones on film, on the set. When we got there, it really is hurry up and wait when you go and do a film. I mean, I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it immensely. And Mark Wahlberg was absolutely a crack up to work with, and found me quite amusing. Unfortunately, at the time it came out, it was the weekend of 9/11, so it was kind of, it kind of shut it down. But it was a very entertaining part. I mean, I remember when I first went for the audition, the actual drummer had no talking part, and it was the director that did one of these moments where he just let it roll, and just said, "Just be yourself. Let me just talk you through it and tell some stories." And I didn't get it on my reading. I got it on just the natural part. And they said, "Well, we're going to change it around, because I read the character and said, Skellington like Keith Richards' character. That's not me. But he just liked the fact, and I remember how annoying it was for poor old Zach Wilde that he had to. At first, they wanted everyone to have my accent. So he goes, "Not only do I have to listen to you all in day, but now I'm having to take you home on a cassette and drive on a CD and drive home with you every night." But we soon scrapped that idea. But it was fun. It was but very different. Current influences will still always be, my list goes. First drummers I got into after Dad were Phil Collins, Mel Gaynor from Simple Minds, Neil Peart. Wasn't really, I just was very aware of him as a player. Wasn't overly keen, but actually really grown up to really enjoy it a lot more now, like especially like Tom Sawyer and stuff. So, which we did in the end of Whole Lot of Love when we played Canada. We went into Tom Sawyer at the end of Whole Lot of Love, which was a little tip off the hat to Neil. Um, other drummers, Richie Hayward from Little Feat, God bless him, another man we lost last year. Simon Phillips from the Jeff Beck album, There and Back, just was a phenomenal player. Still rate him now. Jeff Beccaro, I was very into. Still kind of listen to a lot of the same drummers. I think the newer drummers were like the Chad Smiths of the world, which are the ones I got into later on. And players like who I love, Brian Tishy. I think he's a phenomenal drummer. I've seen him in various situations now. Love his playing. Dennis Chambers always still blows me away with what he does. But as drummers, as new drummers, I went and saw Keith Carlock play in the Baked Potato in LA, which is a tiny little hang, and it was very grown up music, to put it mildly. It started off as very acid jazz kind of, it's kind of in this weird, and I'm going, oh, I think I'm a bit young to understand this. And suddenly it locked into this, and I was like, and then he did this solo, and it was this, and I looked, and he was on this tiny little drum kit. And I went, what a huge sound for just so little drums, and played effortless, with such effort, no effort at all. So Keith Carlock was definitely, just blew me away. Very cool. And Stanton Moore, who's a New Orleans kind of player that does a lot of this snare drum shuffle work that is just, yeah, it's kind of cool. So for a novice drummer is to learn how to play guitar and learn how to sing. Look what he did for Dave Grohl. Why couldn't he just, not only is he a really good drummer, he's like a great singer, great songwriter, plays great guitar, and he's cool.